Hello, my name is Kevin Debs. I use he, him pronouns. I've been with SEEC since 2020, working with Ms. Kimberly to help make sure that Petah Villages comes to life. And what we're gonna do right now is just kind of do a walkthrough. I previously was with Tiny Trees Preschool since 2016, so I have a lot of experience building out outdoor spaces, running and operating them. I've learned a lot, and very excited to share some passion with you. So the first thing, I mean, clearly you want to make sure things are very well mulched, which is already happened. I love that there's some grass space already, so that you know, there's a lot of space for running and playing and having a really good time. One of the things that I thought would be really cool along with this is to create like a sound garden. So basically, anything that makes a fun noise, pots, pans, you can get cymbals or, and then get things for them to hit with. You can get xylophones, all kinds of fun stuff. And we can either put it in this general area or we could put it up on the fence. Putting it up on the fence is good because, you know, it's up a little bit higher and there's more children can use it. So I think that would be a really cool way to explore sound in the area. A tree like this, I think it's a cedar, it looks like a cedar. A tree like this is really great for putting up things like backpacks, right? So we take a rope or a bungee and we put it around, we buy some hooks, and we put those hooks around the tree, and then you can hang kids' backpacks or whatever belongings they have throughout the day. So I think that could be a lot of fun. Looking over into this space, this is already kind of set up as an obstacle course with the balancing, and I think that that's awesome and it can stay that way. The good thing about stumps like this is that they can also be used for different activities throughout the day as tables, right? So some kiddos can eat lunch at these. Sometimes if there's art going on, this is a great place to make and create art. And then thinking about that tree again, and some of these other trees, it's a great place to display children's artwork when that's happening. So I think that would be really great. Again, I think in this area, coming around over here and back into this area, just depending on where light is, would be a great opportunity to install some gardens. So thinking about putting in some planter boxes in this general area, maybe over on this side, we could explore different ways of gardening, right? So we could have a regular planter box, but then we could also invest in an aquaponic garden, or we could invest in a hydroponic garden, right? So that the kiddos are seeing different ways that food can be grown. And with the food that you end up growing, there's a kitchen inside, you can make that food, eat it. Kiddos are understanding and learning about where their food is coming from, right? So I think this would be a great place to think about putting some gardening stuff. Coming along to this side, I mean, a lot of this is already kind of well put together. I'm loving the bench that's already here, made from the natural materials for things such as dramatic play. We used to use a lot of Rubbermaid tubs to put things in. They tend to be pretty waterproof. They keep the toys in a space. The kiddos know where they are, right? And of course, everything should be labeled in multiple languages. And we're gonna make sure that they have the opportunity to explore dramatic play. Pretend kitchen is right there, which is awesome. And there's so many other things that can go on in that area too. This is also a great setup for any kind of work that you wanted to do with actual tools, right? Now you can do this safely, of course, with goggles and gloves and things like that, but that is a fantastic workstation to have kiddos explore how to use a clamp, how to use a hammer, how to use a wrench, right? They make these things in child sizes, and it's important for kiddos to learn how to use some of the bigger things so they understand the weight and they get to learn how to use them safely, right? I love that there's other space to sit right here. I think that is really great for folks who are coming to observe. Creating a space like that over there is a really great opportunity for folks to be able to come around from the back, not disturb the class, not having to walk through, right? And they can come and sit, and then they can watch and observe things as they're happening, right? I would also imagine working with universities and colleges, and if people need to do observations, that could be a delineated observation space. And then the kids know that, right? If somebody is sitting there, they're here to watch you play, right? And they're not here to talk, but they're here to watch you play. So setting that intention and putting it there, I think would be really awesome. In this area right here, my thought was like, this would be a great meeting area. So there's some really big logs outside of this space that I think that if we were to put either in a triangle or maybe in a square with one of the big logs, one of the big tree cookies in one of those corners for like a table or for teachers to prepare things, then you have an outdoor meeting space, right? Kiddos aren't sitting exactly on the ground. We can dig those logs in just like those ones have been dug in. And it's a space to run your morning circle. It's a space to have a meeting. It's a space to read books, right? It's a welcoming space that kiddos know that they can go to be able to either relax or listen to what's going on for the day. But I would envision that space being right here. This is a great climbing tree. This is a great climbing tree. I could imagine bringing in some other sticks, or we can build, I could see a lot of forts being built over here. But this tree right here feels like one that I could see kiddos being really excited about trying to climb around. A little bit kind of more macro thinking about the classroom as a whole. Number one, everything should be labeled. Every area should be labeled. Labels can be made with wooden signs attached to a stake. You just put that right in the ground. Multiple languages help the kids learn about different languages, of course. I would also want to make sure that there was a daily schedule that was up every single day. We tended to use, like smaller pieces of wood and hooks that connect to each other and hang it from something, so that every day the kiddos can come in and they can see, all right, this is the cadence of the day. This is what's going to happen, right? So I believe that would be a really good thing to have in the class space. This is a gated area, which is awesome. It gives some privacy. You also have some rain cover, and it's important to think about weather issues, making sure that if the air quality is bad, the lead teacher needs to be able to make those decisions on whether to go inside or not. If it's snowing to a point to where it's not safe, if lightning is coming, right? These are things that a lead teacher would be expected to know and be able to make decisions on. If we're going to be out here on a regular basis, it's really important to make sure that kids have an opportunity to get cozy, get comfortable, get out of the elements, even if it's for a second. And I can tell you, we would create these spaces, and a lot of times, like some kiddos would use them and it was great to have it when they needed it, but a lot of times they also didn't use them. They were really excited about being outside. That goes to the gear, right? So whatever we do outside for storage, we want to make sure that one of the things that we have is a lot of extra clothing, extra gear, right? Because accidents happen, whether it be a potty accident, whether it's, jumped in a puddle and your socks got really wet, or, just any of those things that will make it really tough to be outside. Maybe forgot an extra layer and it's really cold out, right? Maybe you lost a glove or someone forgot to bring their gloves, right? We want to make sure that we have a lot of clothing for kiddos to be able to use in the event that something happens to theirs, right? And the way that we used to store those are in big dry bags, right? Dry bags are usually used on boats or kayaking or something like that, but stuff your clothes in there, roll it up, clip it, and it keeps everything from getting wet. Thinking about storage, continuing to think about storage, I think it's really important to consider what type of storage we want in the outdoor space. Now, in the past, what we've used are knack boxes. Knack boxes are big, huge metal construction boxes. People also call them job boxes. They are very sturdy, they hold a good amount of things, and it's very easy to organize and hang stuff from them. A lot of teachers would use magnets because the whole box is made out of metal. It's a great way to put up a schedule, cheat sheets for kids' allergies, or quick contact information for families. Those types of things can hang up in a box like that really well. Anything you store outside, you run the risk of rust or things getting wet. So they make these things called damp rids. Another thing that you could use is a Rubbermaid shed. So there are these big sheds, probably I'm about 6'2", they're about my height, maybe a little bit taller. They also make ones that are shorter but a little bit wider. And those are also great places to store things. Another thing that I think is really important to think about is how to transport things, either from inside to outside, if you're going on a walk or an excursion. And one of the ways to do that really effectively and quickly is with wagons. There are wagons that are made that are very easily collapsible, which makes them easier to store. So you could definitely use multiple wagons to if you need to take backpacks somewhere, if you need to grab, water from inside, or if there's something a little bit big that you want to transport, wagons are a great way to do that. And so Amazon has them for relatively inexpensive, and they're pretty durable. So that's always an option. One of the things that you're going to have to do when you are outside on a regular basis is hand washing. So there are multiple ways to make sure that hand washing occurs. If let's say we're having snack outside, if we're having lunch outside, right? So when it gets really, really, really cold, sometimes we would just use hand sanitizer just so that kiddos' hands weren't getting too cold. We might use hand sanitizer instead. On days where you can, lots of ways to do it. One is a big, I'm thinking of the Gatorade ones, but I know they make them at Lowe's as well. But a big water jug, fill it with water at the beginning of the day. We use Dr. Bronner's for soap, and then to kind of cut down on some of the waste, we would use towels, like old, ripped up towels. Sometimes they were old t-shirts. There's all kinds of different things you can use. And then the kids would dry their hands off of those, put them in a bin afterwards, and then I always say, have families do as much as possible. And so usually we would create a sign-up list of who is going to wash the dishes at home and who is going to wash the cloths at home. So that's an option. If that isn't an option, looks like y'all have an indoor space, you can definitely use the indoor space for that. But I like to build community with folks, and one of the ways to do that is giving families jobs to do, right? Another way is, you can use 2 buckets, and they make pumps that you can attach to a bucket with water in it, and the kids just push down on the pump, water comes out, they can wash their hands that way. Either way, I think having a hand washing station outdoors is going to be a game changer. Another thing to think about or consider is sand pit, sand area. Kids love sand. It's a lot of fun for digging. It's a lot of fun for building. When it gets wet, that creates new opportunities. You got to be aware of stray cats using it as a litter box. But sand space is a really cool way for kids to explore and learn and have a good time. So putting a sand pit could be an option depending on what the interests are. So one of the things that generally happens throughout the day is a hike or an excursion. Really kind of depends on where you are and what you're doing. But you really want to make sure that we're getting the kids out of the space and exploring the wider space, because this is beautiful. There's so much here that they can see and learn. And so we want to try to figure out ways to make this an engaging space. So one of the things that I already heard be mentioned was an amphitheater being constructed, and I think that's fantastic. If we're doing programming and activities outside of the outdoor preschool that's operating on a regular basis, which I think we should be, and our community members and our neighbors should be able to come and take advantage of whatever's going on as well, right? An amphitheater is a great way to do that. That's a great space for storytelling. That's a great space for someone to come and read books. That's a great space for music, dancing. I mean, you name it, right? An amphitheater would be a great space for that. Another thing that I was thinking about was creating some very specific trails in the space, right? Number one, that's going to teach the kids that are coming every day, it's going to teach them how to stay with a group. It's going to teach them how to follow the instructions. The lead teacher and the assistant teacher are going to be able to set those ground rules and set those boundaries about where they're going, right? There are a lot of wide open spaces that they will be able to play in and explore. And also setting those trails up gives people a very purposeful walk through space, right? And they can do that without getting lost. They can do that while learning about the space. I think it would be really cool to have some like placards or posters as you walk along the trail that explains some of the native plants and some of the trees that you see, that talks about the indigenous lands that we're on, that talks about Miss Kimberly and her family owning this land and how that happened, right? I think being able to go on a walk in the wider space and folks getting able to learn about where they are, it's gonna help ground them in the space that they're in. And it improves advocacy, and that's really what we need to do to build towards environmental stewardship and environmental advocacy, which is a big part, in my mind, of nature-based education in outdoor preschool. So yeah, thinking about just all the way around, down and through, there could be multiple trails. There could be built-in scavenger hunts. We can talk about the different birds that we're hearing. We can talk about the different bugs that we see. We can talk about what happens during the space in different seasons of the year. I think the possibilities are endless, but really thinking about making sure that there's some sort of way to navigate this wider space safely and in a really fun way, it would really, really add to what's going on.